I know what you're thinking. This channel makes a lot of videos about money in football. I made a video about Mbappe's new contract. I made a video about the new Champions League setup. And I also made a video about the 10 most expensive players ever. And today the video is also going to be about money. Today we're going to look at the most overpriced 11 in the Premier League right now. My name is Nuri. This is the HITC football channel. Let's get right into the video. Starting off in goal. And if you want overpriced, I will give you overpriced because this player is the epitome of the word. And who else could it be than Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa Arrizabalaga. If you don't already know, let me try to explain how overpriced this guy actually is. In the summer of 2018, Chelsea bought Kepa Arrizabalaga from Athletic Bilbao for a fee of more than 70 million pounds. And that fee was the highest fee ever paid in the history of the sport. And in 4 years' time, this hasn't changed because he is still the most expensive goalkeeper in the entire world. And now the question obviously remains, was he worth the money? And to give you the answer straight away, no. No, he wasn't. Because if you only look at his stats from this season, you know that the fee that Chelsea paid for him is an absolute joke. Because if you pay 70 million pounds for a player, you can at least expect him to be somewhat decent. Because apparently Thomas Tuchel trusts this guy as much as Lewandowski trusts the Ballon d'Or ceremony. Okay, this will be my year. I know it for sure. And the winner of the 2022 Ballon d'Or is Karim Benzema. Oh, for fuck. And it's even more painful if you realize that the current Chelsea number one only cost the club 20 million. Jesus Christ, I'm just looking at his transfer value right now and it is only 9 million. A big fall from grace from the 70 million that Chelsea once paid for him. So this is surely one of the worst pieces of business that Chelsea has ever done. The first defender is right back Emerson Royal and he also hasn't been great this season. In my latest video I made the best Premier League 11 of last season and I really had to change the entire formation because I didn't want this guy in it. And that already says something, right? He had a great stint at Betis where he actually made a name for himself, but he also played for Barcelona and now obviously for Tottenham Hotspur. And the 22.5 million they paid for him was not really worth it. And it showed because the player had a lot of problems adjusting to the Premier League and he hasn't been great this season. At the end of the season, he even saw his game time reduced because Matt Doherty took his place and that's not really what you expect from a player that you paid more than 20 million pounds for. And in a recent interview, Emerson Royal said that he was adjusting really well to the Premier League, but so far I haven't seen it. And obviously we shouldn't write him off because this was his first season in the Premier League and he's only 23, so hopefully he will improve. But based on this season, he's definitely overpriced. The first of the two center backs is Davinson Sanchez and this one really annoys me. Because the one season he played at Ajax, he was honestly one of the best young center backs in the entire world. And I honestly thought that big things would come for Davinson Sanchez. And I couldn't have been the only one that thought that because Spurs apparently also saw the potential in him and they paid almost 40 million pounds for the player. But in 5 seasons at the club, Davinson Sanchez really didn't lose his rough edges. And especially these last couple of seasons, Spurs have started to lose faith in the player because the signing of Christian Romero already showed that they wanted to improve the defense and he has been performing pretty well and definitely better than Davinson Sanchez. And at 26, Sanchez should have already been more consistent if he really wanted to be a world-class defender. And with his contract up in only 2 years, this might be the moment for Spurs to cash in on the player. And the second player of the centre-back partnership is
Maguire.
This season has literally been atrocious for the Englishman. And in his first few years at United, there was already a lot of speculation. Is he worth the price tag? A lot of people were already accusing him of being an overpriced player, and after this season the verdict is definitely guilty. And just like with Kepa, Maguire is still the most expensive defender in the history of the game. And I don't know what it is with these players. Do they struggle with the big fee that clubs pay for them, or in this market are average players just very overpriced? Because it feels like nowadays players only need one good season and then clubs are willing to pay fees of more than 70-80 million euros for them. And it's understandable that people doubt whether Maguire was actually worth it because last season he was captain of a Manchester United side that recorded the lowest ever point tally for the club. They conceded the most Premier League goals in their entire history and the club also finished outside of the Champions League spots. And Maguire also didn't really get a lot of help from the midfield in front of him. And there's another United player in this 11. And before you watch the rest of the video, comment down below who you think it is. And after the season that United just had, I'm sure that you're spoiled with choices. And another club that didn't really have a great season was Everton. And their left back, Vitaly Mykolenko, didn't really live up to his price tag. In January, Everton Everton signed the defender for over £20 million from Dynamo Kiev. And since arriving, Mykolenko only played just over 50% of the available minutes and he didn't really impress. And to defend Mykolenko a little bit in only half a season in a struggling side, it's difficult to adapt, especially in a competition like the Premier League. But hey, we're looking at the facts here, and for half a season and a price tag of more than 20 million, Mykolenko didn't perform. The first midfielder that we're going to talk about is Leicester City's Boubakary Soumaré. And at the start of the season, I thought that this was a pretty good piece of business. Soumaré had a great spell at Lille and he was also a PSG Academy graduate, and Leicester even paid under his market value as they paid £18 million while he was worth more than 25 million. But so far it hasn't really worked out for the 23-year-old, as he only featured in 19 appearances and he only played 32% of the available minutes. And when he played, Soumaré didn't really fit in with the other midfielders. And just like with Mykolenko, this was his first season in the Premier League and it's difficult to adapt because the French league is definitely something else than the Premier League. And I'm predicting that a lot of players will depart Leicester, so he will probably get another chance next season. But as it stands right now, Leicester should have probably spent their money elsewhere. Moving on to the next Manchester United player, and for a fee of more than 50 million, Fred has not been worth it. At 29 years old, this is probably the best that we're going to see from Fred, and he's not going to improve anymore. And we've all seen it this season, Manchester United's midfield does not function and Erik ten Hag definitely needs to refresh there. And the question obviously is, will Fred make the cut? And in my opinion, if you want a reliable midfield, this guy is not in it. Fred is really good at winning the ball, but in other aspects, he doesn't really add that much. And like I said, in 2018, Manchester United paid more than 50 million euros for the player, and right now his transfer value is just under 20 million, which shows that Manchester United definitely overpaid for the player. And let me name a few players for you: Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Ilkay Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, N'Golo Kante and Mateo Kovacic. And you're probably wondering, why is he naming all these players? What does this have to do with Fred? Well, all of these players cost less than Manchester United paid for Fred. So I think that says enough, right? And the attacking midfielder of this team will be Alex Iwobi. And since Moshiri took over Everton 6 years ago, the club spent more than £500 million on players. And it's pretty painful to realize that the 35 million pounds they paid for Alex Iwobi hasn't even been the worst piece of business. And Alex Iwobi has always been kind of a strange player for me. When Iwobi plays, you can definitely see that he has some qualities, and obviously the family link with JJ Okocha is also not a bad thing. But in football nowadays, you need to score goals, and Alex Iwobi isn't necessarily the most clinical finisher there is out there. Since making his debut in 2015, Iwobi only scored 16 career goals. So in 7 years, that's an average of just over 2 goals per season. And at Everton this season, he has done just that. He played 28 times and scored only twice. For Everton, this transfer has been horrendous because now his transfer value is 20 million lower than what they actually paid for him. But even more important, he hasn't performed on the pitch. And next up is Nicolas Pepe. And again, this player is literally the definition of overpriced. Because just like Kepa, Nicolas Pepe is only a bit part player, and this season he only played 20% of the available minutes. And a great stint with Lille in France convinced Arsenal to pay more than 70 million for the player in 2019. And I just realized that Pepe is already 27 years old, so this is by far one of the worst deals that Arsenal made in recent history. Next up is West Ham's Nikola Vlasic, and I just think that the Premier League needs to give up on signing this guy. When he played for Everton between 2017 and 2019, the player played 12 times and scored 0 goals. And somehow this still convinced West Ham to sign him, and this season he didn't do much better. He played 19 times and he only scored once. And his performances throughout his career so far tells us that the Premier League level is definitely too high for him. And the striker for this 11 will be Leicester City's Cenk Tosun. Well, I'm saying striker, but this guy only scored 9 times in his tenure with Everton. And last time I checked, people expect a striker to score a little bit more than that. Tosun has already been at the club since 2018 when Everton signed him for more than 20 million euros. And after 2 years of not performing on Merseyside, the club finally gave up on him as they loaned him out to Crystal Palace. And the club even sent him back to Besiktas in 2021, the club where he had his best spell, but also this didn't save his career. And right now at 31 years of age, his transfer value is only a tenth of what Everton once paid for him. And this summer he will finally depart Everton on a free as his contract just ran out, and let's say he can't really look back on a very successful spell with the club. So anyways guys, that's the video done. A lot of Everton and Manchester United players. Something seems to be wrong with their spending habits. But anyways, let me know in the comments down below, who do you think is the most overrated player in the Premier League ever? Oh, I read it, also share the most overrated player in Europe, because why not? So guys, you know the drill, be sure to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.